I was one of the Native American children, adopted at birth and removed from our country's Indian reservation system. I was raised in a small middle-class farming community, but was never told of my true American Indian heritage. It was still taboo back in those early days. The years passed, and in 1987 I lost both parents. While going through their personal belongings, my wife discovered my adoption papers and she began a search. 5 years later, I was reunited with my biological Lakota family, living on the Lower Brule Sioux Indian Reservation of South Dakota. I am a son of two mothers and a product of two worlds that had collided, but I have an equal amount of love and pride for both. I'm Paul LaRush, and the stories you are about to see are an attempt to share this true American story of a hidden heritage.
In his younger days, he had taken part in the Sweat Lodge.
That face has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe longer.
Well, I grew up during Depression, the Great Depression, and I grew up during the dust years.
I come from Waswaganee, a place in northern Wisconsin.
I looked out the window and I knew something was happening because when I looked out, I saw not Indians over here, whites over here.
Man that was ahead of our security stand over, grabbed that rifle. Give me that rifle. Took it.
It breaks my heart to see the way it really is as a grown-up person, as an adult. Poverty that they have, to know that the young ones are losing their culture, you know, their history of who they are and what they are, of what they stand for, the pride, you know.
This week on Hidden Heritage, we're going to visit a family of artists from South Dakota. They have defied the odds now for almost 4 decades. Not only have they found a way to work and play together, but they've paved the way for generations of Native American artists from across the country. If you're from the Midwest, you've probably heard of and seen at one time or another the world-famous Gordon Bird family. Join us now as we visit Gordon, Joanne, and Jackie, better known as the Birds. Just north of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, sits the small, peaceful community of Brookings, a typical small Midwestern town by most standards. We picked a beautiful warm winter afternoon to visit with Gordon Bird and his family, who reside on a picturesque property situated on the north shore of Lake Campbell.
Hi, I'm Jackie Bird from the Mandan, Hidatsa, Dakota Nations, and I live in South Dakota. I know for a fact I started by absorbing it probably from being an unborn even to an infant, toddler, teenage, young adult into early grandmother stage now. All absorbing from my parents. They're really amazing in their fields. My mom's a visual artist, and then my dad's a musician, and they're overall my best teachers ever. And so we just all are naturally involved. It's just all natural. We don't know anything else. It's the realm we live in. My very most proud time, as young as I can remember, was when I was 9 years old, and I played drums for my dad in the basement, and he had friends come over, and the drummer wasn't there, so I got to play to Blueberry Hill, and I remember that.
An actual drum.
I went to boarding schools. I went to Marty Indian School and then Flandreau Indian School. And in the dorm rooms, a lot of the girls would come over to my room, and I'd tell them stories or cultural things that I've listened to. I traveled with a medicine man and his family, the late Martin Heiber. And when I traveled with them, it opened up a whole new world for me, because I knew I was at a turning point between worlds. If I would fall in a downward spiral with the other kids that were all doing experimenting, and then, or I could go into the real vibration that would keep me going well through life, which was the spiritual growth. And so I chose the spiritual path, and that opened up the traditional singing. And I had a rock band, and I would sing traditional from the night before at our Indian club, and I'd sing with the guitar a little bit, and then I was starting to combine it, and then I brought it home to my dad, and then he made a side A, side B track of Lovesick Blues, and then an original song I made, Whirlwind Rider, and then right from there, I just started it just drove me everywhere.
Jackie is a singer, hoop dance performer, inspirational speaker, fancy shawl dancer, designer, and artist. She has performed around the world, but is best known for mixing traditional Native sounds with a retro 80s rock feel and Native American blues. She calls it Indian blues rock. She is an enrolled member of the Sisseton-Wahpeton Sioux tribe of South Dakota. Jackie has been performing alongside her sisters and parents in the family group since she was a child. Now her own daughters also perform in the same family group.
That was through my grandma, my Hiradza side, and she loves traditional ways. Her first language is Hiradza, just as well as my dad, and he'd play music all the time. And then it just called me, and so I made my first dance regalia with help. And at 7 years old, I drew it out, and the lady sewed it. Because just to keep rebounding is really good for your cells, and then also the message. I do it mainly for the message of all people work together for unity, world peace, and global healing. And my dad's the one that encouraged me the most on to make the each directions visible, and then I always remind wherever I'm performing that we're all related and we can work together. It's really just a nice remembrance. And then I make a medicine wheel. And what the medicine wheel does, it connects our hearts, and it brings centering and peace to that area. So it's just a reflection. I make star patterns, and then we reflect each other. It's just so natural. I don't know anything else. So that's all I really know. When I was younger, I had a rock band, and I used to like to be like Pat Benatar. It's almost like I passed it down to my children now, because now my daughters and my grandchildren are really involved on the powwow circuit and trail. And I'm really grateful to see that they're carrying on what I used to take part of. But I use my heart like my navigator, and I just follow it wherever. Yes. And so lately I have my 2 sons, and there's one more that I'm still raising. So I just put all my attention into motherhood. I make sure that each child that I bring into the world, I encourage others to have a therapy of the arts, and that will help them get through life. Because when I was in high school, I would draw all the time, and then eventually moved into music. But each one of my children are involved in the arts, and then I see them pursuing it. Someday when I see the Creator and meet him, and he says, "Okay, Jackie, where are the gifts I gave you? And if I were to approach him, I'd say, I don't have any. I gave it all to the people.
Hidden heritage. Stories from across Native America.
I'm Gordon Bird. I'm from the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara people up in at the Fort Berthold Reservation in Newtown, North Dakota. I've been more in the traditional area because I started singing traditional music when I was like 4 years old, and I sang all the time right up to when I went to the Pure Indian school. Well, then I was singing. A couple of my brothers were dancers, and then a couple of us were singers. And so a lot of our tribal members from home up there in Newtown, we went down to the Pure Indian school. That was about 400 miles from where we lived. It also went there when I was 5 years old, went away to boarding school. But then all the time I was involved in singing traditional music. And then we used to go out and perform for a lot of the schools and the churches and special functions where they needed traditional dancers and singers, so. But it carried on from there. And then when I got to Flandre Indian School, I started playing guitar. And I was, I guess, probably 12 years old, 13 years old, right in that area. And so I started singing rock and roll then. But when I'd go home with it, I'd still be singing traditional music too. And so I would sing with my dad and my brothers and different guys. So I carried on, and then I started playing for dances when I was sophomore in high school. I had a band there at Flandre, and we had like a trio. And a guy by the name of Dale Benson, he played guitar, and Roy Spotted Wolf Hunter. Anyway, he played drums. And so we played for a lot of the dance. Of course, I had a lot of other musicians there too. I met Joanne when I was a sophomore, and she was a freshman. And so when you find someone or something you like, you got to grab onto it and hold it. So that's what I did to Joanne. No shit. Yeah. So, and then I started playing there all through high school. And when I graduated, then I attended General Beadle State College in Madison. Yeah, and now present day Dakota State.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I went there. I didn't do very well in my first attempt there because I was only there for the first year, and then we formed a group called Gordon Bird and the Stingrays back in 1964.
Some of the folks around here are going to recognize that.
Yeah.
So what year, that was here? What year?
That would have been 1964. Yeah, I graduated in '63. I was 17 years old when I graduated. That's because they. Oh no. I just got too big for the desk, so they just shoved me out of school. No.
So
maybe too big for my britches. That's what it was.
No.
We played rock and roll, and we played a lot of the Beatles just started coming in at that time. Of course, when I was at Flandre, then I knew all of the rockabilly songs, all of the Elvis songs, and Carl Perkins, and Ronnie Hawkins, and a lot of the old rock and rollers at that time. So I learned a lot of the '50s music too. So, and then when it got to Flandre, to Madison, and then we started doing, the Beatles and Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Searchers. You remember all of those groups from back in that time? At that time the ballrooms were really big, and so we played, I think, just about every major ballroom in that. Let's see, we had that band for about a little over a year. There's the Hollyhock was at Hatfield, and then the Showboat Ballroom was run by Jimmy Thomas. And Jimmy Thomas booked us for almost 10 years.
We booked with Jimmy Thomas.
Did you? Yeah. So anyway, and that was from about 1976 up until 1986. Yeah, and so he had us playing a lot of the different ballrooms and proms and homecomings. I was still playing homecomings in 1986. Isn't that unreal? That started, I suppose, it would have been right around the middle 70s, when Jackie was, and Sherry was 6 years old at that time, and then Jackie must have been about 9 or 10, right in that area. And so they were going to the different celebrations. We call them celebrations up there, and then most people call them powwows. And I don't care for the phrase powwow. I just as soon have it be a celebration rather than powwow, because powwow is kind of negative, Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyway, they were attending all these celebrations, and then of course I've always sang for them when they practice, so, and then, but I always, sort of coupled the traditional music with the rock and roll. And then, I played jazz and gospel and country and, just about all the different kinds of music through the years. But I've played polkas too, and schottisches. Yeah, right. But my favorite still is gospel and Indian first, and then gospel, and then classical music. We started. Let's see, Joanne and I we started traveling with art shows, and at that time, let's see, in '86 I quit playing dances, and then we started doing concerts. And then shortly after that, I suppose it would have been like in 80, yeah, about 86. Then we made a trip over to Germany, and then we took our family group over there, and we did traditional performances for Karl May Spiele, and that was on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they had crowds, like anywhere from 10,000 per performance. For 2012, they're inducting the band that I had back in the 1964's Gordon Bird and the Stingrays. And then, but there was 5 of us. We had a sax player, drummer, bass player, guitar player, and then I played lead and sang lead. And then after I left, and then the sax player also left when they became the original Stingrays. And so now there's 7 of us that'll be inducted, and that'll be let's see, it'll be, yeah, I guess just 7 guys. Yeah. And 4 of us from the original Stingrays, and then 3 guys from 4 of us from Gordon Bird and the Stingrays, and 3 from the original Stingrays, so we're playing as a composite group. And they've really had some fantastic groups there. I don't know if you remember the Flippers and the Red Dogs, and yeah. And I played at the first one for Dean Burns, the Burns Brothers Band. They were out of Rosebud. And one of the guys, Russell Burns, he was the lead singer, and he was, and they're from Lorbrew. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and they're enrolled there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dean is the only surviving member of the Burns Brothers Band. So the chairman of the board called me and asked if I could play guitar, and I said, sure. He said, well, here's a group that's going to back him, and he sent me a CD, and I thought, well, these guys won't be able to do that, So anyway, I put together a group, and I got my keyboard player and my bass player and my drummer, and then a sax player came in, and then Dean played rhythm, and then, of course, I played lead. And then, of course, the family, whenever we need backing vocals, could always count on Joanne, Jackie, and Sherry, and Lori, so. But anyway, we're still involved, and we're always willing to experiment, and if somebody needs a little assistance here and there, I could always do that.
So you're not ready to retire yet, by any means?
No, just tired.
Joanne Bird is one of the most famous artists of the Northern Plains. She has a very unique style of painting that has kept her in demand for nearly 4 decades. Her paintings depict her Native American heritage, and much of her work is spiritual in nature. Joanne is also an accomplished bronze sculptor, and her work can be found throughout the United States and Europe. Joanne has won numerous awards and honors for her work.
Hi, I'm Joanne Bird, and I'm originally from Sisseton, South Dakota. I was given away when I was a year old to my grandmother, fortunately, and she raised me. Yeah, my grandparents were real religious, and we had to go to church 4 or 5 times a week. They were so strict that we couldn't watch TV, listen to the radio. And I remember we had a wood stove, and I melted crayons on it. And I remember liking the smell and the effect.
Wow.
And that's all I did was color and draw. And at home, that's all we did.
Yeah.
And in school, it was the only thing I got straight A's at. Okay, when I first got married, I was working for 3M. I did airbrush work, and I did turning black and white film into color. I did each frame, and I'd do like 3,000 frames for a 1-minute commercial. And so I became an airbrush expert, but then we moved to North Dakota, so then I started just doing my own art. Yeah, at first they didn't know what to call me because I was so different, but it happened by accident, which was a great accident. We moved back to Sisseton, to the reservation after many years, and it was really different for us. And I was outside, and I was just throwing my paint. out of disgust. And I found out I could control it.
Wow.
And there was a man that came to our house, and he was very interested in buying this real loose painting. And we didn't sell it to him. And I did a Northern Tribal Arts. And Gordon brought in all my loose pictures. And nobody looked at my realism. And we sold out, and we couldn't believe it. And it just kept happening, and it just took off.
Yeah, Joanne is an artist, and she's been an artist since the late 60s, about 67, 68, 69, right in that area, more closer to 1969. And then when we first opened our business, and I was playing all the time, and we'd do all the art shows too, and then I'd, try to juggle our schedules that way. And that isn't always the easiest thing. But in 1976, Joanne and I decided to become independent. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but we started a retail shop and a wholesale operation. And then of course there was music and art in those areas. And so we opened our first shop in Pipestone, and then we named that Featherstone. And it sounds kind of Indian, but it really is. It's English, And a friend of ours was a doctor over here at the university in Brookings, and his name was J. Featherstone. And so we kind of liked that name, and it did really sound kind of nice. So we took that name and named our shop that, and we also named our band that, and then our wholesale operation. So we used that name, and then we started. We had our shop for, from 1976, and we went in partnership with another guy, and then we built Fort Pipestone, and that was kind of a different thing there, to build it in a place of peace, where the stone is quarried. Yeah. So, but anyway, all during that time I was playing, and then we went out and did art shows, and then the kids, as they grew up, sort of recruited them to do different things. And then we started performing at the art shows too, which was double duty for me then, and really proved out right for us, and then, of course, I became more Joanne's assistant through the years. So I do all of the paperwork and a lot of the computer work, and some of the real high-tech IT stuff, I leave that to the grandkids. Wise man.
I always try and change or find something different, but some people will buy the new things, but they still like old. And I've seen artists where they didn't change and it went way down for them. So I'm always trying to come up with new ideas. When Shock Free first started, Norman Crooks commissioned me to do a sculpture of Little Six, so I did that. And then I started doing sculptures. I did one for a museum in North Dakota. Then I did a lot of small ones. And that was before painting. It's been great. And it hasn't been easy, because there's a lot of times where you break down on the road. Sometimes lose your trailer. But otherwise, I'm really happy we did what we did.
No regrets?
Do it again, too. Thinking about it. Kind of missed the road.
Thank you for joining us this week on Hidden Heritage. It's been our mission over the years to find positive stories from within the Native American culture. The story and legacy of the Gordon Bird family is just the kind of thing that many times goes unnoticed by the mainstream. We'd like to express our appreciation to Gordon Bird and family for all they've done for the Native American culture over the years.
In looking back over our visit with the Gordon Bird family, I came to a realization. It's fair to say that the circuit of music festivals, art shows, and theaters that we perform at today were forged out by the hard work of pioneers like Gordon Bird and his family. All of us with Brule and Hidden Heritage would like to sincerely say thank you. It's our hope that we can inspire the next generation of Native American performers as we continue to pioneer one of the last musical frontiers.